Hey guys, so this is going to be a rambling video. There's been so much on my mind lately, and I'm almost having it's almost like flashbacks. Like I start thinking about something, and it's bad, and it drives me to almost just pound myself in the head thinking about it. And I need to vent. That's what I need to do. So that's what I'm gonna do. Certain things you just hold it in, it just makes it worse. Venting helps. So I was thinking about my dad lately, and when I say thinking about him, I don't mean I remember. I don't remember him. I was too young when he died. And when I say my dad, I mean my mom's husband, the person that I thought was my biological father. I've explained in the past, in another video, what happened. A few years ago, my mom told me that I guess they had to they went to the doctor because she couldn't get pregnant, and turns out that he had weak sperm or something like that, and they used a second donor, and I don't think it was a sperm donor. I think they combined the sperm, and now we know that it is possible for there to be two biological fathers. I don't know the exact procedure or the science behind it, but it was possible back then too. So when I say my dad, I mean the man that I believed was my biological father throughout my life, and apparently they both agreed to the procedure that was done. They were both aware of it back then, but and so now I don't know. Do I actually have two biological fathers? Anyway, so I was thinking about my dad and how I believe that they killed him. Now I believe that this program started long before that fight online. For so many years I thought it started with a fight online, but now I believe it started long before that, and I was put into this program. My mom was. I think they killed him because he would have been a protector, and I can't, sometimes I just go insane thinking about how much easier things could have been if he was here, even if just to help me with my mom, because this is all on me alone. The rest of the family, they're not helping me. I'm here alone dealing with this. Fuck it. Things would have been so much easier if he was here, which is why he isn't. They got rid of him. They killed him, is what they did. They knew how much I was going to struggle. Anyway, so I was thinking about how years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I had gotten a job in corporate America, and that's after getting my associate's degree. And I almost, I almost didn't get it because there was a member of the family, my mom's brother, who tried to sabotage that attempt. He has a lot of power. He's in the military. He provided everything for his own offspring. His two kids. He got one of them a home, a mobile home, but still a home. It's something, right? It's safety. It's security. And he bought his son a mobile home, and his son would have been given anything he wanted. If he wanted to go to medical school, it would have been paid for by my mom's brother. He would have denied him nothing. Of course, he didn't do much of anything, and so he got a house bought for him. His daughter, then not his daughter, but my mom's brother's daughter. He has two kids, a son and a daughter. He bought her. He paid for 2 bachelor's degrees for her. Right? She has no student loans, nothing. He paid for both for her, but he didn't even want me to have one paid for. I ended up getting my associate's degree, and he tried to sabotage that at the end. And this keeps happening. Like I'll start something and I'll come close to succeeding, and then something bad will happen before I finish it. But this time he did not succeed. I got my degree. I got the worthless associate's degree, even though he attempted to sabotage that at the end. He didn't. I did it anyway, and I'm sure he's He hated that. But he did make it a lot harder. I guess he can take pleasure in that. I won't get into what happened. Sometimes I wonder, did he put us in this program? But no, I think the entire family was probably in this program. It's just the difference is he has power. He's in the military, so he's gained more power, and you take the other side instead of just being, the doormat that's being stepped on. He can be the abuser. Anyway, so I graduated. I got my associate's degree, and I got a job in corporate America. This was so long ago, and I was set, pretty much. I was paying off my student loans. In a few years, I managed to save up for a down payment for a car, and I bought a car that way, a used car, granted, but it was still a car, and it was mine, and it wasn't perfect, but it was in good condition. And then I paid it. I spent years paying it off, and I didn't quite pay it off. I got it almost paid off. Literally, it was almost paid off. I spent years paying down the car loan, and then I lost my job. I had maybe 7-8 months left to pay it off. And I lost my job, and I didn't have anyone to help me make the payments. My mother would have if she could have, but at the time she couldn't. She just couldn't. So I lost the car. And what I did was, when I knew that I would not be able to make the payments and I couldn't find another job, I traded it in for a junker, because what that meant is that the dealership would pay it off for me. They would pay it off, and I would get the junker in its place. And I knew the junk car I would not be able to drive for a very long time. But I pretty much gave the car away, is what I did, to have it paid off. So I lost everything. I lost what I worked for. I worked for the goddamn fucking down payment. I worked for years to pay it almost off, the loan, and then I lost everything at the end. There was so little left. But I did it that way so that it would not be repossessed, and so that I wouldn't have a repossession on my credit. So I was able to spare my credit that way. I pretty much gave it away to the dealership, and it was paid off in my name. Right. But I lost it anyway for a junker that didn't last very long. And I knew that was going to be the case, but I did that intentionally, right? It was better than getting the repo on my credit score. Some people, they're given everything in life. They don't have to work for a damn thing. And other people, they can't even keep what they work for. So I think about, what's happening now, right? I think about what's happening now and how hard it is. And I think about that old car, and I think, well, now I do have some money saved up. I could buy a used car. The problem is, first of all, I would have to use my life savings on a cheap junker of a used car. And second of all, the perpetrators would put a tracker on it, right? And I mean, I know now they can track me anywhere anyway. I go out and they can track me. They follow me everywhere I go. But I guess there's that illusion of, if I'm on foot, I can maybe flee. I can maybe ditch them and lose them somehow. Whereas in the car, it would have a tracker before it left the lot. So I would never be able to flee. And two, they would destroy it, right? I have a friend who's a rideshare driver, and they've fucked with this person's car. They've done a lot of damage. I don't know what to do at this point, because dealing with my mom, I have to be here to take care of her. Right? I have to make sure if I don't force her to eat, she won't eat. If I don't force her to bathe, she won't bathe. If I don't force her to change clothes, she won't change clothes. I have to be here. But I also need a job. I need my own salary. I need my own income now. It's hard living off someone else, because you feel like shit. And the perpetrators, of course, they hammer that in. You're worthless, you're this, you're that. And it's not that you're not working, being a caregiver is work. It's a job. It's just not a paying job. They have a paid job, as worthless as they are, right? They gather in their massive groups to hunt, stalk, and terrorize lone targets that they don't believe can ever fight back. That's how worthless they are. Pathetic cowards. But they get paid to do it. You know, caregivers, whether you're taking care of an elderly parent or kids or someone who's disabled, you have an actual valuable job, though you might not get paid. Doesn't mean it's not work. But when you're the only one there and you're tied to that job, it's hard to go out and get another paying job. For someone in my situation, you know, I would have to come back a few times a day to check in on my mom. And it's not that she's immobile. She isn't. She just won't do for herself what has to be done. Right? I have to make sure she's not getting into trouble. That's because there's mental illness here. It's not just age, it's mental illness. And not one other goddamn person is here helping me. They can condemn me for not having my own job, but they don't tell me what the fuck they expect me to actually do. How do I handle this situation? I can go out and work, but then I would have to come home a few times a day. What job allows that? And then I would have to take, you know, a public transportation or ride share and expose myself to COVID, to the virus, and then come home and expose my mother to that. And expose the other seniors in this building to that. Right? Because I don't have my own car. Having my own car would make that easier, especially since I wouldn't be an Uber driver to drive people around, or a Lyft driver, a rideshare driver. I wouldn't drive people around because I would be exposed to the virus. But I could be a delivery driver, right? And for that, you can have any junker of a car. It doesn't have to be in that great of a shape. But I don't have a car. I don't have a fucking car. So everywhere I go, when I do go out, I try to walk. I'm not going to take public transportation during a pandemic and then come home and risk my mother's life. Right? And I only go out for necessity now, which is a nightmare. Not being able to get the hell out of here. It's a fucking studio. And when I do go out, I try to walk. If it's somewhere far that I have to go, I will take rideshare if it's not within walking distance. If I have to take my mom to the doctor or something, I'll go with her in rideshare. And I hate that because, you know, the rideshare drivers, if they're not just delivery drivers, if they're driving people around, they're exposed to the virus. So there's always that fear, right? Having a car would be a lot easier now, but because I need it, I can't have one. Even though now I can afford a cheap one, really cheap, but still something usable to drive my mom around, to get around if I have to go somewhere, to have some work, so a legitimate paid job, be a delivery driver, right? Even if I did do that, they would put a tracker on the car, and they would probably trash it. So I could easily spend, you know, if I were to get a cheap car right now, I would have to spend my life savings on it and then risk having it trashed by the perpetrators. I was thinking last night, almost to the point of breakdown. I couldn't stop thinking about it, that there are other people in this family who have been given every fucking thing. They've been given houses they didn't have to work for it, literally a home. They've been given cars they didn't need. At 15, they had fucking cars they didn't need just as toys. And then you don't like it, traded in the next year for something else. But I have to work this fucking hard for something I need. And then I can't even have it. And even the car that I worked for and I had almost paid off, I couldn't even keep what I worked for and earned. But somehow I'm the bad one. I'm the worthless one. I'm the useless one. But they still haven't told me what exactly they would like me to do. I have to be here to take care of my mother. They're not here helping me. They're not here taking some of this responsibility. But I can't have a full-time job doing this because I have to keep coming home a few times a day. Having a car would be easier. It would make that easier, especially a rideshare driver, again, doing deliveries where I can make my own hours. But they're not going to help me with that either. And what good would that do? Because the perpetrators would trash the car. You know, they don't want me to... They can come down on me for not being independent. But they're not independent. They were given everything they have. But they haven't told me what exactly they want me to do. How do I manage this? You know, how do I take care of her and come home a few times a day while still having a full-time job? And the one full-time job I could get, I don't have the equipment for. And of course, they don't, if I were to tell them about the gang stalking, they would just think that I'm mentally ill. I don't know. And I think about how, too, I take one step forward and I'm allowed to, but then I'm pushed back 1,000 steps, right? So, for example, my mom's brother really tried hard to stop me from getting my associates. He did not succeed. I got it anyway. He made it a lot harder, but I got it anyway. But now I'm worried, what if I do, I'll spend my life savings on a car so I can do rideshare, delivery driver. So I can drive my mom around without having to worry about exposing her to viruses from other rideshare drivers, who drive people around all day. God, how much easier that would be, wouldn't it? But I take one step forward, I'm going to get knocked back 1,000 steps. So I know as soon as I get a car, they're going to destroy it. So I'm afraid to do that, and I think about what happened when I was in trucking school. Now that was a nightmare. It started off great. It happened in 2 stages. The first stage was to get the permit, the CDL permit, which I did. That was a computerized written test, and I passed that with flying colors. The trouble started when we moved to the other location after I got that, because you can't even get behind a truck until you have that permit. So after I got the CDL permit, time to go to the other location to learn to drive. And at first it was great. I got behind the wheel and I had never driven manual before. I was shifting in and out of gear and it was great. I was driving this truck and it was great. Parking was a little more difficult, but I was learning. I was getting the hang of it. And then 2 things happened. 1, I got really sick. And 2, this other guy, he just chose me as a target to fuck with. And they keep reminding me of him. His name was Jesse, and that's his real name. Well, his name was Jesus, but he went by the Americanized Jesse. And they use this against me now. They'll keep having people come by me with, hey, Jesse this and hey, Jesse that. And even when I had to take my mom to the doctor, someone said, hey, is Jesse in back? Just to remind me of what happened. So this guy, when I went to the second location to actually start driving. Well, let me back up. At the first location, there was a back room where we all went to study for the written test, the computerized written test. And there were these Russian guys, and they were hacking and hacking and hacking, coughing. They were so sick, and the door was closed, and I'm thinking, I hope I don't get sick. Well, at that location, I still didn't get sick. So I went, and I got my permit, I passed, and I was so excited. Success. Because these trucking tests aren't easy, right? Right, so then got the permit for the CDL, moved to the second location where I would learn to drive. And it was an academic, we did academics there, and I passed the written, the exams. That was not an issue. But I got sick. And the second part was Jesse. He chose me as a target, and every time I opened my mouth to speak, he would condemn me. He would knock me down. He would tear into me for things that other people had done that he just joked off. Other people could fuck up royally, but if I flinched, he would condemn me for it. He would condemn me for things that he ignored in others. And then one day it got to the point where we were all in a group and we all had to get up and practice with one of the trucks, we had to practice a move that the other guys in the group had already done, but I had never, not only did I not do it, I never even learned it. We had to do it each one at a time with everyone standing there, and I knew what was going to happen. Now, another guy fucked up royally, and Jesse laughed it off. It was no big deal. But if I had fucked up, he would have used that as an excuse to say, well, I shouldn't have been there at all. You're calling me a stupid bitch and a fag and this and that, and, luckily, most of the other guys, they didn't, they refrained from going along with it, and I appreciate that. I really do. But he was really trying hard to get me out of there. And by that point, I was already starting to get sick. My chest was congested. I was coughing, and I knew that I had caught whatever the Russians had, the Russian guys had. And at one point I got so sick I couldn't go anymore. I had to stop. And I was at home, and for about maybe I don't know how long it was, 2, 3 weeks, I was hacking my lungs up. It was really bad. I had never been that sick in my life. I don't remember. Then it seemed like I had started to get better, but everything again, I was not better. I was in the bathroom, and I was bending over the sink, and I got up, and I stood up fully, and I felt all of this fluid rush into my ears, and instantly I couldn't hear. And there was a lot of pain and a lot of pressure, and it was so bad that I went to the ER the next day. And the doctor saw dried blood in my ear, and she came to the conclusion that it was an ear infection. But I explained that I had that chest infection, the chest cold, and that, how this just happened with my ears. How could this have been an infection? But she gave me antibiotics anyway, which didn't work. And for another 3 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, I couldn't hear anything. Well, you can't get behind a big rig if you can't hear. You have to be able to hear, you have to be able to see. So I was out of commission for another 3 weeks. It was so bad, eventually I didn't go back. This time I was knocked out of everything. This time, epic fail. A few months later, I did go to a proper ear doctor, and he ended up having to irrigate my ears. There was caked up dried blood. So I don't think it was an infection. I think if my eardrum burst, I don't know what exactly happened. The point is, I take a few steps forward and I get knocked back on my ass 1,000-fold. So now I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what to do. I could use my life savings to get a cheap used car, but I'm afraid they're going to do something to it. It's hard now not having a car because I need that. I could get a job right away. I could be a delivery driver and have some kind of independence, some kind of independent income, right? Because not having that, people, the perpetrators will remind me of how useless I am. But if I were to go out and get a job and not be here 24/7, and something happens to my mom, then they're going to be, they're going to dig into me for not being a proper caregiver and for failing at taking care of my mom properly. So I'm damned either way, no matter what I do. And they set a trap for you no matter what you do, no matter where you turn to step, there's that trap you fall into. No matter what you do or don't do, say or don't say, they use it against you somehow. You're damned either way. I'm either not here enough and not a good enough caregiver, or I am here 24/7, but then I'm useless for not having a job and being able to care for myself, right? And for a while, I did have little odd jobs that I could, I would go out and walk people's dogs. How did I save up money? Well, I would go out and walk people's dogs, and I would help people around the building, and I would do other things where I could earn some cash. And two, I'm living with my mom, so I don't pay rent right now. I'm living as her caregiver. But it would be nice to have my own income, and with to be a delivery driver, I could do that, which they don't want me to do. I know that as soon as I get a car, they're going to sabotage it. They're going to try to destroy it. So I don't know what to do at this point. I don't know what to do. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I was thinking about my dad, and I was thinking about how much easier it would have been if he was here. Not just that he would have helped me more, but that he would have helped me with my mom. This wouldn't be on me 100%. And, I love her. I want the best for her, but it's the mental illness that's the problem, My aunt, my aunt on my dad's side, she took care of my elderly grandparents. And my grandmother, she was sick, but she kept her wits about her till the end. She was sharp. So my aunt had that kind of camaraderie, that kind of help, that kind of mental support from my grandmother, who's very bright. My grandfather was really sick, though. He got Parkinson's disease. He was physically incapacitated. He was mentally incapacitated. She took care of him. My aunt took care of him until he died. And she had cancer, my aunt, and she was sick, but she still took care of him. She had 2 jobs. During the day, she had a day job. She worked for a daycare. Then she came back for the second half of the day and took care of my grandfather. She didn't rest at all. You know, she didn't get paid a lot at the daycare center, and she didn't get paid at all for being a caregiver for my grandfather. And of course, the other members of the family were perfectly content on letting that all, you know, pushing that all off onto her. And I was really young at the time, and now I hate myself for not doing more to help her, now that I'm in this situation that I'm in now. I think to myself, you piece of shit. You should have helped her more. People think, oh, you're a caregiver, you don't get paid, you don't work. Bullshit. And you know, whether you're taking care of an elderly parent, I know a lot of other targets, they're taking care of elderly parents, some are taking care of kids, and it's hard. You work. You don't get paid, but you work. And I hate myself for not helping her more. I kick myself for that. All the horrible things that have been done to me, I hate myself more than I hate the perpetrators who are attacking me now. Because I should have helped her more. But I also think about the people in the family who could have helped us. They could have, you know, they're off running around and they're fucking taking their fucking vacations and on their fucking yachts and doing this and that. Well, we're home with all the responsibility. And then they say, well, why don't you do more? Why aren't you more successful? Well, I actually have responsibility that I can't just leave. I'm so angry right now. This is a long video. I'm just ranting and ranting and ranting, and I think about the people who just given everything. Their degrees were paid for. They don't have student loans. Now I have student loans. Now my credit is shit because I haven't paid off my student loans. You know, they don't have to worry about housing. They were given houses. They were given cars they didn't need. They use those cars as toys. But for me, you want it, you work for it. I'm just ranting. And I shouldn't. I know I have it easier than a lot of other targets. A lot of other targets are homeless. They don't even have a roof over their head. Some of them are lucky enough to have a car. I say lucky because I know there are targets who, it wasn't luck. I say luck. I shouldn't use that word. They work their ass off for every little fucking thing they have. Still homeless. At least they have a car. Other targets are out on the street without shelter. Oh, God, fuck us. God, fuck us. This is a long video. I'm going to end this here. And you know what, though? To those of you targets who are watching this right now, who are homeless, and who are especially it's winter now and you don't even have shelter, God bless you. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do more for you. God bless you. God help you. I'm so angry right now, I almost can't even fucking say that. God have mercy. When? I think it's about time. And now I'm angry at myself for being angry with God. Yeah, I'm gonna end this now. I'm thinking about you, and I'm worried about you. And to those of you who I haven't been in contact with for a while, some of you just disappeared. I hope you're okay. God help us all.